Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Lunch and Learn episode by Opal Kids. These are occupational therapy mini webinars that you can watch on your lunch break. Every month, we feature a new topic. So if there's something that you would like to know that we haven't touched on yet, please let us know and I'll do my best to make it happen. With every Lunch and Learn episode, you get some information on a specific topic, but you also get lots of tips and strategies that you can implement right away. My name is Aaliyah Drakes. I am a children's occupational therapist. I'm the clinical director of Opal Kids. I'm an author, I'm a triathlon coach, and I'm a triathlete. As clinical director, I manage our 3 branches of Opal Kids across Trinidad. And I also see children virtually and I do some work in the region as well. I have written a book called It Takes a Village, which is a guide for parents and caregivers to better understand their child's unique needs in the areas that we see coming up a lot in therapy: potty training, understanding behaviors, picky eating, and understanding how the sensory system works. This book can address lots of those concerns, so if you have any of those concerns and you would like to purchase the book, please let me know. Now, on to today's webinar. This topic is all about returning to school. The last Lunch and Learn, we looked at some things to think about when you move from school to vacation and some of the things that can happen and things that you can do to maximize this time. But today we're going to look at what happens when we look towards resuming school after that long break. First off, just as when you are getting into the long break, there's some things to think about. There are also some things to think about when you're returning to school after the break. The first one, again, is transition. For a lot of students, they will be transitioning to a new classroom, a new class setting, maybe a new teacher. Sometimes you might have new friends. And some children might be transitioning to a new school altogether or starting school for the first time. So it can take some time to make this transition. Oftentimes, I'll tell parents give it about the first 3 weeks of school. Let's say give yourself the first month, give yourself September to monitor how things go, see how your child is settling in, and you know, make sure that there are no pressing concerns. So that transition time can it may require some support. You may have to chat with teachers, let the teachers know what you know helps them in school, and just have more conversations with the teachers, with the schools, as you help to transition your child to that new setting. I know lots of schools have orientations for new students coming into the school, but if you think that your child needs a bit more, then you can chat with the school to make that transition a bit easier for them. With that, the next caution is to reduce demands. So think of, if you are in a new environment, the last thing you want is for somebody to treat it as though you've been there all the time and expect so much of you when you're putting so much energy just into getting used to a new space. So for children, you can reduce some of the demands on them at home if you find that they're coming home after school and they might be overstimulated, overwhelmed, they may be tired, extra tired. Reduce some of the demands placed on them. For example, if they usually have a lot of different tasks when they come home, a lot of different chores, maybe they're responsible for putting the clothes in the washing machine, or they are responsible for setting the table or something like that. It can be that if you notice that they are a little bit extra tired or overwhelmed, you can give them an easier task to do or fewer tasks to do. I'm not saying remove everything completely for all the time, but base it on how they are and adjust accordingly. All I'm saying is just monitor and manage your expectations as you go along. You may find that after a couple of weeks, you notice that they're coming home, they're having more energy, and then you can start to get back into the routine that you want them to have from before. So just monitor how they are and reduce the demands to make sure that you are helping them to rebalance after a long school day rather than adding more things onto their plates. And as I said before, it may take some time to really settle into a new school term, especially for students with additional needs, because it's almost like their bodies and their brains have to rewire to something new. So it can take about 2, 3 to 4 weeks based on the child, but expect that this might happen and put some supports in place if you find that your child might be taking a little bit longer to settle in. So if you find that maybe your child is having trouble waking up in the morning or having the energy needed to start school, or you find that for the first time when you're dropping them off to school they're crying a lot, then reduce demands, but also try to get to why are they crying when you're dropping them off? Is it that they're tired? You may need to adjust the bedtime. If it is that they may need more time on a morning, or maybe just more connection on the morning because they'll miss you when they leave, it might mean that when you wake up in the morning on a morning, set aside a few minutes just to sit with them, just to give them a little bit more hugs, just to give them more attention, more time, but adjust it accordingly. Give that time to figure out or just make sure that they're settling in properly into the school term. So now we can get into 10 tips that can help to ease our transition back into school. First one is sleep. As we know, vacation time, sometimes sleep gets haywire because your schedule is a bit different, or sometimes, you just don't get to, you don't have to keep that same schedule as you did during school. But in the last 2 to 3 weeks of vacation, so coming down to the middle of August, end of August, start to use that time to get back onto a sleep schedule. As I'd said in Lunch and Learn episode 6, you can work it to within 30 minutes of the preferred term time sleep schedule. Bring the schedule back to that because sometimes your body does need to readjust to going to sleep a certain time, waking up a certain time. And you don't want to wait until the morning, the day before school starts, to then say, okay, you need to be in bed by 8. So use that time to get back into the sleep schedule. And with this, it doesn't just mean making sure that your child is in bed at a certain time, it means developing a sleep routine. So this can be a time to see what works, what doesn't work. Some children need to do something movement related a couple of hours before they go to sleep because that helps them sleep. Whereas some children, if you do a lot of movement activity without something calming, then they may stay up for the night. So develop your sleep routine and see what that can look like. Does your child need to start their sleep routine from 5 o'clock in the evening? What do they need? Do they need to do some movement? Do they need a story time? Do they need to take a shower? Do they need to have some time with you? Do they need to, have some time to read or to write? What time does the screen time need to stop to make sure that they get a full night's sleep and their bodies are really relaxed? So use this time to figure out what that sleep routine looks like and how far back in the day you need to start it to make sure that when it's time to actually sleep, your child's body is in that state where they feel relaxed and they can wind down a lot faster. Monitor what helps and what doesn't, especially in that last 2 to 3 hours before bedtime, because that's the time when you really want to prepare your body for sleep and you want to make sure that the activities you do in that time will help to get the body ready for sleep. So, as I said, it can be some children need to have movement, but you want to follow up the movement with something that's a bit more regulating so that they can get that energy out, but then also the body can start to come down from that high to be a little bit more relaxed. So start to monitor for parents and caregivers. Monitor what works, what doesn't work, what foods may not work, so that by the time the term starts, you have a, a decent idea of how you can make this sleep time routine work as best as possible. Tip number two, read. And I put this here because I find that so many times now, I'm looking at comments online and it's just very clear to me that people are not reading anymore. Read books with your child. One reason for this, it takes away a lot of the screen time, but it helps to regulate because you're not on all of the time. Read lots of age appropriate books. Give your child books that helps to build their creativity and helps to just help them understand how to think, help them know how to spell words, how to use grammar properly. Read books that they will enjoy, even if it is comic books. That's absolutely fine. In addition to that, for some children, younger children, read with your child. Make sure they know, make sure they understand the story. So take some time to read with them. It can be before bedtime, it can be when you wake up in the day, it can be a book that you're reading together and you're discussing, but read with your child. Make sure that your child develops that love for reading. Not everybody is going to love reading, but at least make sure that they understand how important it is to be able to read to understand. With that, read street signs for younger children. Help them develop that awareness of their surroundings, but also read to understand what certain signs means. Things like what certain signs mean. Things like exit signs, things like caution, street signs that they may need to know that can represent, safety, danger, things to look out for. Make sure they know and understand what those signs mean. And just read everything that's in your surroundings, point it out so that they can start to read street names, so they can start to know, oh, okay, when you get to this street you need to turn, this sign says this. Point those things out so that your child develops that understanding of reading, spelling, grammar. Please and thanks. Tip number three, prepare for school meals. Now, for some children, they will eat the same thing at home that they'll eat in school. At home they may have a full meal, rice, chicken, everything, and in school it'll be the same thing. But for some families, they may do it where at home you have cooked food, and then maybe at school you have something that's a bit easier to eat, like sandwiches. What might happen is that if you're accustomed eating one thing at home, and then you get something else for school, your child may not want to eat that for school because it feels unfamiliar to them. So start to practice things that you want them to eat at school, start to practice it at home. So start a trial. If your child doesn't eat sandwiches at home at all, and you give them a sandwich for school, they may be totally confused. So give them a sandwich at home once in a while so that it's something they will eat at school. With that, you can also start to align the times of eating so that at home, if school lunchtime is 11:30, have lunch at 11:30 at home so that their bodies start to get used to this is the time that food is going to happen, so that they can start to develop those signs of hunger, so that when they go to school, lunchtime will come and they will feel hungry enough to eat. Involve your child in what goes into their lunch bag so that there's that familiarity, there's that motivation to eat. It's something that they want. With this, limit the amount of snacks and processed foods and quote unquote junk food for school, because ultimately when they are in school and they're eating, think of it as fuel. As a triathlon and triathlete, when we think of food, we often don't even talk about food. We talk about nutrition. We talk about fueling and hydration. It's very much scientific. Your body needs XYZ, so you need to give it XYZ so that it can perform. And for school and learning, it's much the same thing. You want to think about what's going to help my child stay alert, stay focused, what's going to give them the energy that they need to perform and do the things they need to do throughout the school day. And a lot of times that's not corn curls and junk food. You really want to make sure that the majority of their food is filled with good sustainable carbs and proteins and things that will sustain their energy throughout the day. So this can mean, if you're looking at different snacks, it can mean making things like making granola at home that you know has limited sugar, or you can put whatever you want in there. It can mean making, if you still want to make cakes and muffins or have those kind of things, you can do it in a way where it has additional nutrients. And you can make that with your child and have it as part of their lunchbox. Tip number 4, build skills, but build skills for school that are outside of academics. The academics part, that will be covered in school. So, yes, for some students, you do still need to continue with academic based learning throughout the vacation, but think as well of other skills that they will need for school that maybe you may need to practice at home to make sure they're a bit more independent. These can be skills such as opening their water bottles, making sure they know how to open it more independently, or opening their lunch containers, punching a straw in a juice box. These are certain things that we may overlook, but they can be so important because they can really help build a child's independence in school so they don't have to ask for help for things all of the time. For self-care skills, this can mean how can they dress? Are they able to dress themselves? For some students who may have belts and zippers, maybe they don't have that on their regular home clothes and going out clothes. But for their school uniform, maybe they have a belt, maybe they have a zipper. So now going to the toilet has an additional step. Can they manage it for themselves? Or is it that they need to ask for help before they go? A lot of uniforms may have buttons for the shirt. Can they manage these buttons for themselves, or do they need some help? It can be things that you practice at home just so that they become more self-sufficient. And with toilet training, some children may be potty trained, maybe fully potty trained at home, but when you go to school, are they able to manage the school uniforms themselves to take off their clothes when they need to? Are they able to pull up their clothes and adjust to make sure that the band is nice and flat, that their shirt is tucked in how it needs to be tucked in, or untucked if it needs to be untucked? Do they need to ask for help to be able to go? Can they ask for help? Do they need to know which teacher they need to go to ask for help? I have heard where some children, they are potty trained, but they go to the toilet, but then afterwards they may get stuck and may leave the toilet with half of their clothes off or undressed, because that next step, they usually get support for it, but in school, you may not have that support. So just kind of thinking through what are the things they need to know how to do for school, and how can we build these skills at home before they get to school. Next, this is more for the young learners, maybe the ones who maybe now starting school or now starting primary school. Teach them basic information about themselves and about their surroundings, about their environment that they will need to know. The first one is teach them their real name and their full name. I know this is often a joke that comes up around this time, where sometimes children, they are so accustomed to their nickname, they might not know their real name. So if a teacher is doing a roll call and calls their full name, they may not know it's them. So teach them their real name, their full government name, so that they know what to listen out for, or they know what to write on the paper. But also teach some basic information about themselves, about the school, about you, that they may need to know in the event someone asks them. So you can teach them their age, teach them the names of their parents. So, yes, their parents are called mommy and daddy, but who is mommy and daddy? Teach them the name of their school or their class teacher, just things that they would need to know to build that awareness around them. For secondary school students, this may need its own webinar, but for secondary school, there is often a big jump in expectation because you go from primary school where you have a teacher who's there to support you, somebody who's making sure you're on top of your work, your parents are there checking your homework, making sure you do everything, and there's generally a lot of support in primary school. But then you go to secondary school where the first of all the number of subjects doubles, maybe triples or quadruples in some instances, and you may have different classes that you need to physically go to instead of staying in the one classroom. The schools might be bigger. The expectations from the teachers become a lot greater because teachers now suddenly expect you in 2 months to go from needing lots of support to being able to do it on your own. So that jump can be very jarring for some students where they may have expected the support and they may need some support in being able to be more independent and understand that they are expected to be independent at this stage. So you can do things at home with your child who's going into secondary school to build their independence and build their self sufficiency. You can do this by giving them certain chores and responsibilities that you see fit, whatever works in your household that you think they can take on as their responsibility. Have them be responsible for certain things, but use tools that can support the skills that they will need to study. Time management is a big skill, a big thing. So use calendars. Whatever calendars they will use for school, some schools may have digital calendars like Google Calendars. Make sure they know how to use those things or use tools that they will feel comfortable using. For some students, they may be fine with a Google Calendar, they can use that no problem. For some students, they may have a checklist, whether it's a checklist on their phone or a checklist, a written down checklist. I would caution against a checklist on the phone because obviously they may get distracted and want to go do other things. But just have a way for them to start to put their schedule on paper and know what they need to do. You can use timers so that they can start to plan their time and manage things a bit better. Time management becomes really important from this stage because their bedtimes need to be adjusted somewhat. They may not have, as parents, you may not be on them as much saying it's time to go to bed. This is where you may need to look at that sleep schedule and determine what's going to be the rules for your family regarding screen times, phones. For some students, they may need their phone as an alarm to wake up in the morning, but then how do you monitor if they're going to be on their phones for the whole night? So this can be a conversation to have with your preteen or your teen to determine what's going to work best for your family around how you want them to manage their sleep, their time, waking up in the morning routine, how much support they're going to need, how much they can do by themselves. This is really where you are preparing your preteen and your teen for doing things more on their own or just having a better understanding of how to do things on their own. Tip number 7, discuss bullying. At any age and stage, discuss what bullying looks like and discuss what to do. Some children may not know if someone's being a good friend to them or not. They may not be able to pick up on certain signs because if some, especially for some children who are neurodivergent, who may not pick up on some of the nuances, they may just think, oh, that person is telling me something nice when that person is really being sarcastic. So talk about what a good friend looks like, what if somebody says XYZ or does XYZ, that's not a good friend. Discuss what bullying can look like. It's not always somebody pushing you down. It can be somebody saying certain things to you. And explain what to do. What's their first step? Do you want them first to talk to you? Do you want them first to talk to the student? Do you want them first to talk to the school? For some children, you may need to give them some concrete scripts or things to say or things to do so that if they hear XYZ, they know what to do. So discuss it, make sure, and use this time as well to build your child's self esteem so that if somebody tells them something mean, then they get so much at home, so much love at home, and so much positivity at home that those comments may not sting as much. For the routines, we want to make sure that you have an established morning routine. So if you don't establish what that morning routine will look like, and for some children, you can go through with them what they need to do on a morning and practice it. Try out that morning routine a few times to see how it works. So a few times before school resumes, set the alarm, make sure that you wake up this certain time and go through the morning routine as you would want to when school starts. You can also trial your morning commute. Yes, now it will obviously be a lot easier because there's not as much traffic as you will have when school starts, but certain things as just kind of mapping out your route. And for some students, they may need to see what the route looks like. So you can try out the morning commute. If your child has to travel, maybe if they have to travel by themselves, make sure you try it out with them. Make sure that they know exactly where they need to go and what to do, what to look for, etc. For some, it may be useful to have visuals so that they know from the time they wake up exactly what to do to get out of the house on time. Depending on the age, some students may benefit from just pictures, they may need words. Older students, older children, a checklist. You may start to have a checklist by the door. Do you have your bag, your shoes, your water bottle, your lunch? Check, 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 check. Time to go. So start to get those routines in place and make it known. Tip number 9, some families may benefit from an all about me cheat, kind of like a cheat sheet, but an all about me sheet that helps to prepare students, helps to prepare teachers and schools for understanding their child a bit better. Some families may say, no, let's just get the school, just let them, see and let them form their own opinions. But for some, it may be a benefit. I've done it before where we've done this all about me sheet to give to teachers, and it has been really useful because it helps the new teacher understand what what works for that child, what helps them learn, and just a bit more information about them. This helps with building these strong relationships. It helps with building that foundation, building that rapport, so that the transition is a bit easier. So it's not like you are telling the teacher, oh, you need to do XYZ, but it's sharing information in a way that's going to help everybody. If you do want a template for this All About Me sheet, then please send us an email, send us a message, and I'll be happy to send that over to you. And the final tip is to think about regulation as you go back to school. Think about it as the school term is going to be overwhelming for everybody. It's going to be overwhelming for you as parents and caregivers. It's going to be overwhelming for students because it's a new environment, even if it's the same school. So, in this wind down to the vacation time, yes, you want to still enjoy, but make sure that you're having lots of downtime, lots of time to just help the body reset and regulate. You want to think of it as you want to start the new school term from a place of balance and from a place of regulation. You don't want to start the school term stressed because it's only going to get worse from there. Reduce the screen time. Yes, now some might be saying, oh, but last few weeks of school, get all the screen time in as much as possible. It's actually the opposite. Because remember, screen time is very dysregulating. For some, it is regulating, but for a lot of children, based on the things that they look at, it can be very stimulating. And you want to make sure that you have lots of activities outside of screen time that can just help rebalance, just help the nervous system feel regulated as you get into the new term. So the next steps from here, as I said, I've written a book called It Takes a Village, which is a parent's guide to supporting a child with unique needs. There's lots of tips and strategies that can help with those different categories. It's available on Amazon. If you search for It Takes a Village and search for my name, Aaliyah Drakes, or we have some copies available in-house. So you can contact us if you would like to get your copy. Next, we have webinars on a bunch of different topics, and more will be coming in the new term, not for the rest of August. In the webinars, you get lots of additional information. So we go a lot deeper into a topic, and I give a lot more practical tips and strategies that you can use. Some have additional resources that you can take going forward. And for more resources, Opal Kids is not just a clinical service. We have a full educational service available for parents, teachers, caregivers. We have our webinars. We have our clinical services for in-person occupational therapy. We do school services as well, where we work not just with teachers and students in school, but we also work with the school administration to help to build the inclusion practices in your school. We have direct parent services where we have parent coaching courses. Another one is coming up soon. We do webinars and we do lots of free resources via our social media channels and websites. And of course, my book. If you would like to contact us, you can email us, you can give us a phone call or WhatsApp. Our offices are located in Port of Spain, South and East Trinidad, and we also offer virtual virtual therapy packages, and you can contact us for that. Check out our website, which is kind of the one-stop shop for everything, and it tells you everything that we do. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you at the next Lunch and Learn. Bye.